And when I started there, I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I had some idea of what I liked and what I thought lighting design was about, and I really didn't have people watching over me to help me. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of like working a bit in the dark and fighting my way. I remember I went to a meeting up at Kevin Roche's office for a project, and everyone told me, keep your mouth shut, don't say a word. Kevin knows everything there is to know about lighting, and just do whatever he wants. Of course, I didn't listen to any of them, and I opened up my mouth, and everybody turned around like they were in shock that I said, did you think of this? And he looked at it, he made kind of a frown, and everybody was really nervous, and he goes, yeah, that's a really good idea. We should look at that. I can't believe some of the things that we produce now from a visualization standpoint. And when we're done with this, I'll walk you around the office, I'll show you some of the things that people do. And it's just, we have like lighting mock-ups, and then we have 3D visualizations, and they almost match identically.
From New York City, I am Thomas, and this is The Light Lounge, a podcast founded as an art project, me interviewing and talking with the most brilliant and creative lighting designers in the world, to learn from them and to get inspired by the stories they share. In this week's episode, I'm speaking with Stephen Margulies, one of the founding partners of One-Lux Studio, an incredibly acclaimed lighting design studio working on projects all over the world. Stephen is widely considered an expert in the industry with over 35 plus years of experience as an award-winning lighting designer, business owner, and amazingly gifted storyteller, as we will hear in this episode. I always admired One-Lux Studio. I even once applied as an intern, as I was still a student myself. Wasn't good enough at the time. However, I always kept following One-Lux Studio, and whenever I talked with anyone near around the studio, I only heard great things about the culture, design excellence, and especially Stephen's remarkable ability to communicate. After some overlapping engagements, we finally found time to sit down for a conversation for the Light Lounge. We danced between stories from the early days working with legendary figures in the industry that you all have heard of, pitching bold ideas and winning projects, to growing a team, building a successful lighting design firm, and talking around challenges and opportunities of today and tomorrow. Please enjoy this wide-ranging conversation and insightful wisdom from Stephen Margulies. Enjoy.
So we work in a rather complicated industry. What we do is complicated. There are many things that could go wrong. We think we're good at what we do, and we limit the things that go wrong, but sometimes there are a lot of other people who touch what we do. And it's amazing how things can go sideways sometimes. And so the question for us is, how do we manage those difficult situations where something's wrong with what we do? Didn't necessarily happen to be our fault, but we're on the team with everybody else, and we need to figure out how to work towards a solution. So we pride ourselves on trying to find those things before they happen. We think we're pretty good at finding them. We don't find everything, but we're pretty good at finding the holes and the minefields that are going to happen that are in front of us before they happen. But from time to time, we miss one, and those become very difficult situations to manage. How you manage them with your client, with our clients, we've learned, is what gets you to the next job. We're very careful about how we manage difficult situations. And we always stand by what we've done, even if something went sideways and it wasn't even our fault. We always stick with it to protect our clients and their interests, even though they could be costly for us from a time standpoint, where we could just say, look, we didn't do it. It's not our fault. You guys fix it. And when we do things like that, we kind of like anchor strong relationships with our clients. Listen, we're not a huge business. We have, depending on the week, we have 25 to 30 people working here. For a lighting design firm, I think that's a decent sized firm, but it's not like some of these large architectural firms who have hundreds and thousands of people. It's a limited amount of people. We have built our practice on relationships. The three of us came from Cosentini Associates. We worked in an engineering firm. We built a lighting design studio there. It was called Cosentini Lighting Design. It still exists. None of us are there, but someone else is running it. And we focused on maybe a dozen clients when we were still there. And when we left, those dozen clients were still our clients. And Cosentini was actually helped us launch this business. So they were very kind when we said, it's time for us to leave. And so they didn't mind that the 12 clients that we focused on came with us. And so, but they came with us because we had relationships with them. We worked with them. We learned our craft with them. I started in this business, I think, in 1981. I was one of the first IALD interns. There was a Chris Herder who went to go work for Kliegel. And I went to go work for LSI, the track lighting company. We were the very first two ILD interns. I interned for 2 years with them, and then I got out of college. And I went to go work for an engineering firm for a year because I needed to learn more about electricity, which I didn't learn in school. So I practiced being an electrical engineer for a year, even though I'm not an electrical engineer. I wanted to learn about it. And then I went to Cosentini, and I was there for 25 years. And when I started there, I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I had some idea of what I liked and what I thought lighting design was about, and I really didn't have people watching over me to help me. So it was kind of like working a bit in the dark and fighting my way. And luckily, we didn't get into very much trouble, and we had nice clients who helped us, who were seasoned clients. The best thing about working there was I got to meet some of the best architects ever in the world. So I got to work with Kevin Roche, Harry Cobb from Pay Cobb Frieden Partners, Caesar Pelli, Philip Johnson. These were all such like legendary figures in our business. And I got to meet all of them. Some of them even knew who I was. Some of them I even helped on some of their projects. I remember I went to a meeting up at Kevin Roche's office for a project, and everyone told me, keep your mouth shut, don't say a word. Kevin knows everything there is to know about lighting, and just do whatever he wants. And it was for some office building in Baltimore in the harbor. And his two partners briefed me about it. And of course, I didn't listen to any of them, and I opened up my mouth, and everybody turned around like they were in shock that I said, did you think of this? And he looked at it, he made kind of a frown, and everybody was really nervous. And he goes, yeah, that's a really good idea. We should look at that. And that's when I got to start working with him, and I started doing a lot of projects with them. And they're fantastic. And I remember when he came to my office once to work on the second phase of the Museum of Jewish Heritage, to roll up his sleeves and work with us. He knew more about lighting than anyone, me and any of the other lighting designers who were in the room, who we had. So the great thing about being our start at Cosentini is we got to meet such smart, talented people. And that is what helped us start our company. We worked for people like, I met Jim Getch, who was partners with Helmut Jahn at the time. Helmut Jahn came to New York, did half a dozen buildings. He was the rage at the time in the early 80s, and Jim Getch was his partner. And I started a relationship with Jim way back when, only because I came up with a neat idea for a project that nobody thought of his. And it was how to light the top of Park Avenue Tower, which had this pyramid, which we used light pipe. I don't know if you guys know what light pipe was, but it was this 8-inch fiber optic tube. You stuck a light in one end, and it glowed from one end to the other. And they came in to sell it to us to light hazardous location rooms. So like a gas storage room, you put the light outside the room and you pipe the light in. And I said, no, we have some other ideas of what to do with it. And we came up with this way to attach it to this pyramid at the top of the building. All the light sources were at the base of the pyramid. We piped the light. And they thought that was pretty neat, and it worked. It's now been replaced by 3 other LED lighting systems. This goes back, 40 years, but it was kind of an interesting solution. And that's started my career with Jim Getch. And I don't know, I must have done 25 buildings with him over the years. And you get to work with some of the best, the absolute best people. So we really think about our relationships and try to preserve them. It was funny when we were at Cosentini, I remember they would shoot buckshot all over the world to get work. And I said, that doesn't work for our little lighting studio. We had like 8 people in it. I want to focus on Harry Cobb. I want to focus on Cesar Pelle. I want to focus on Jim Getch. I want to focus on these people who like us, and we've learned a lot from them, and develop relationships with them. So when we started this company, Jack already had his relationships with clients. Fernando had his relationships with his clients. I had my relationships with my clients. And it was a perfect time for us to start One-Lux Studio. And we're still, those dozen or so clients are still probably our main clients. Since then we've established relationships with other great architects and other great clients, but that was our core. And that's what led to where we built this company. And for us, it's doing whatever you need to do to preserve those relationships. Because once you've lost it, it's almost impossible to ever get it back. Yeah. Almost impossible.
Yeah. Why don't you touched base already on a couple of different things in your journey, and it's wonderful. Thank you. I've been trying to sort of find a little bit sort of at the beginning, and you mentioned already you have a background. You studied architecture and engineering.
I studied architectural engineering at the University of Colorado.
Got it.
So when I was in high school, I liked building things, I liked designing things, and I worked. They used to have shows in high school, and I used to work building the sets. And I just really enjoyed it. And I got not introduction to lighting, I just got introduction to design, building things. How do they go together? What holds them up? How do you design these things to hold up? And so I wanted to go to school to learn more about it. And I didn't know if I wanted to be an architect or an engineer. I didn't even really know if I understood so much what the differences were at that point. So I found this program called architectural engineering. It happened to be at the University of Colorado. I was an avid skier. I wanted to get away from New York, to get away from the East Coast and broaden my horizons with other kids from other parts of the country. So it checked a lot of boxes. And I had to have 2 friends who were already there. So I went I applied, I got into the architectural engineering school, and just so happens they had an illumination engineering program, and everybody in the architectural engineering program had to take lighting 101. So I took it, and this guy, Ron Helms, who unfortunately just passed away, the very first day of class, he said, if you want the easiest way out of the engineering school and make the most money, stick with me. And I just looked at him, I said, sounds good to me.
That's what we're going to do.
And so, because your first year of engineering school is really tough. First year is really tough. Second year is probably tougher. I don't know, about the same. But the first 2 years of school in an engineering school, they just try to weed everybody out. So it was really tough. And I felt how tough it was immediately as soon as I got there. And I thought I was pretty smart, but there were a lot of people there who were a lot smarter than I was. And so I listened to him. It was a very technical program. There was almost no design in it. I used to give him a hard time. Once I started working in the design community, like I couldn't design my way out of a paper bag if I had to, and I had to kind of learn it on the project. And other programs now since then are very good at teaching design. But when I was there, I remember going to one of the first board meetings of the ILD. Leslie Wheel, Howard Branston, Jules Horton, all the legends who were in our industry. And to be quite honest with you, they all had pretty good egos. And I was sitting there listening to all of them. And I said, is this something that I really want to do? Because these people were very interesting. They were all very smart, all very talented. But they all knew how important each of them were. And they let you know that.
Is this, I appreciate you mentioning this, is this something that you think is maybe even needed to understand and maybe believe so strongly in the value that you bring as a lighting designer that's maybe not always evident to everyone?
I think in our industry, most of the people who would even think of hiring us know the value of it. Maybe I'm biased, but I'm not interested in going to try to get somebody to hire me that's doing a waste management plant in the Midwest somewhere. Like, I mean, there may be a need for somebody who knows what they're doing to do that, but that's not something that I particularly am interested in doing. But most of the designers and developers, because those are our two clients. We work for developers and we work for architects. Those are who our clients are. They, for the most part, they really understand the value. Once in a while, we run into someone who you need to explain to them what we do. In fact, I had that yesterday. Says, oh, I don't need you for this phase of the work. You did all the design work already, and I don't need you anymore to finish the job. I said, okay, we'll see what happens. But for the most part, the people that we work with do understand the value. But back in those days when I was at that first board meeting, it couldn't have been the first board meeting, but it was one of the early ones of the ILD.
How did you even learn about it?
Because I was the first ILD intern, so they invited Chris Herder and myself to attend a board meeting.
Wow.
And it was somewhere in one Penn Plaza or two Penn Plaza. I remember kind of where it was. And the two of us were invited because both of us, I think it was my second year of college. And we were invited. So we got to sit and listen to who our mentors were. And what was really interesting is that I don't even remember how I applied to be an ILD intern. I'm not sure how that happened. It might have come through school or something. And Chris and I both went to the University of Colorado. And working at LSI, I interned for them, I think, for 2 years, was unbelievable. I got to meet great interior designers. There was this, and I worked in the showroom that was on East 58th Street. And I worked for Marvin Gelman, who founded the company. And he came out of a studio. He was an NBC lighting director for many years. And his knowledge of light was just absolutely fantastic. And there was this woman, Barbara Montgomery, who worked in the showroom. And they didn't really call on like specifiers like we are today. They had all these interior designers and decorators who came into the showroom, which was on 58th Street, asking for lighting help. And this Barbara Montgomery could sell them the Brooklyn Bridge. She was just amazing to watch her talk about light and what light does, and actually how she spoke to some of these people was kind of fascinating. Working for them, I also got to meet, somehow I got involved in nightclubs, Studio 54 and Infinity, all these you're too young to know about a lot of this stuff, but they were like the most amazing places on the planet. And I said, wow, this is a great business. So I kind of stuck with it. I figured that those internships were my test to see if I was interested in this. And I got to watch Paul Morant's work, and I got to watch some great lighting designers really do what they do extremely well. So when I got out of school and I did my electrical engineering stint, which really wasn't too exciting, I remember going on an interview, and the guy who interviewed me, he said, "Why do you want to be a lighting designer for? It's so boring." And he was an electrical engineer. And I said, well, I don't want to do electrical engineering. I'd rather be a lighting designer. And I remember when I went to go work at Cosentini, one of the things, because they didn't really have a lighting department, I was there to support projects, not do anything that was very complicated, which eventually changed. But when I first got started, I was working on, which I didn't think was complicated at the time, hospitals, schools. And then they gave me a hotel to do. It was the Lowe's Glen Point Hotel right off of Route 80 in Teaneck, New Jersey. I didn't know the first thing of what to do, but they just handed me the job, and somehow I stumbled my way through it. But what it also allowed me to do is to sit on meetings where there were other lighting designers like Paul Morantz, Howard Branston. These guys were the most unbelievable storytellers you could ever imagine. And I've always tried to model myself trying to be a good storyteller. That's what we do. We tell stories. We have to sell an idea. We have to pitch an idea. And these guys were the best. It was just incredible to watch them get up in front of a room and tell these stories. And then as I started to get better, once in a while I got to compete against them to try to get a job. And I was no competition. Just no. There was this one building in the waterfront in New Jersey that we were asked to submit a proposal for and get ready for an interview, and I was competing against Howard Branston. And I worked so hard at these lighting ideas. And we used to do these Mylar transparencies on a light table. And we used to apply shading to it, and then we used to photograph it and try to come up with a lighting image. And it was complicated. And it's not like Photoshop. And I remember I worked so hard, and I went on this interview, and I thought I did great. And then I heard that Howard Branston went in and said, you know what, we're just going to put a bunch of floodlights on top of the building and light Manhattan. That's our idea. And I sat there and I said, and he won, right? But he went in with a cocktail napkin with a little sketch or something, and I just sat there. I said, I don't know how he just kicked my butt, but especially I didn't really think his idea was very good. And actually, it didn't last very long. Once they turned on the lights, so everybody in Manhattan complained, and they had to turn it out. But it was a big idea, And I just learned a lot from being on the sideline and watching these guys, work. And they had a lot to teach.
Yeah.
So I was very fortunate that I got to experience with all of them. And as we got better and we got more work, and we started developing our relationships. So.
Yeah. In the timeline, and I found an interview from 2003 of the Developer New York magazine where you already had the title 1985 as the lighting director of the studio from Cosentini.
I don't know how I did that in 1985, but
I thought like, wow, that's like from 2 years working for Cosentini and then being
it's
so
probably more like 4 years, I think.
prominent in that.
I'm surprised that you just said that, but it's possible.
Yeah.
I actually did work for two guys who really were great at what they did, Henry Hahn and Herb Schlossberg. They were kind of fixtures in the lighting industry. And they also were lighting guys at Cosentini, and they did help me a lot. They kept me out of trouble.
What was Henry Hahn popped up in a couple of times as well. I think he also worked with Jules Horton.
Yeah.
At some point.
I never could understand what their relationship was, but I used to hear that he used to be partners with Jules. I don't know if he's really a partner. He worked for him. I'm not sure. Barbara probably knows more about that than I do.
What made Henry Hahn special for you, or what do you remember when you think about him?
He was a great technician. He was an unbelievable gentleman, incredibly nice, handled stress very well, handled clients very, very well. So I learned a lot from him about that. His history, somehow, if I remember correctly, he had some relationship with Infranor, which was a floodlighting company owned by Sterner, I think. And his best friend was Bud Symes.
Okay.
If no one ever told you a Bud Symes story,
Please.
He was a legend in the lighting industry. He built like every cast iron pole in New York. He built every tunnel light fixture in New York, mostly all exterior stuff. And the Symes company eventually was sold to Sterner Lighting. But I remember the days Bud would come in, and these guys would go out for 3 martini lunches, and they had hollow legs, and they'd come back and they would work. But the stories that they would tell, I remember when they built the George Washington Bridge, and we had to build lights for it.
Amazing.
They had a lot of interesting stories to tell. They were great, And Herb Schlossberg was more on the design side. Henry was more of a technical guy, I think. And so he offered a lot of help for me about trying to keep me in the right direction, focus on the right things. So the two of them were great to work for.
Yeah. So at Cosentini, you obviously spent a lot of time there sort of honing in your craft. Did your time with these people at Cosentini, did the storytelling put maybe a drawing or a visual representation into perspective, where someone would maybe stress about that everything is accurate in a drawing, where you think, yeah, maybe a rough sketch might be fine and we will be able to convey the idea either through me or through a conversation or through a story? I'm not sure if
do you know how we used to do drawings? There was a template and a piece of lead and a pencil, and you drew circles and squares on a plan.
Yeah.
You very rarely presented things the way we present them today, with 3D visualization and graphics and photorealistic renderings, and like AGI didn't even exist when we started. It was Lumen Micro, I think, that which was Dave Delores' program. That was and it produced a bunch of numbers, when it first started.
Yeah.
So analysis was, I hate to sound so old, but analysis was, prehistoric. Our ability to present things in a graphic way were difficult. And I'm not very artistic. I don't draw very well. So that was a challenge. And I had to find, so I told you about these stories about using a transparency, putting it on a light table and putting grayscale on it, and, mechanically making these things work, not drawing with a pencil.
Yeah.
So, some people had the ability to draw well, but the tools that we have today, we didn't have 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So it was hard to create visualization of lighting solutions. Yeah, you had to tell a good story.
Yeah. Do you think you're leaning in today into great renderings or visualizations, or do you still try to find a balance of storytelling versus a perfect image that's created?
You could have the best imagery, and if you can't tell the story the right way, if you tell the story out of order is very important. The whole chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, it's important that you tell your stories in the right order. But you can have the best visualization, and without telling the story the right way, you can fail.
Yeah.
You can get away with telling a great story without any visualization, but it's easier to be good at both. I can't believe some of the things that we produce now from a visualization standpoint. And when we're done with this, I'll walk you around the office. I'll show you some of the things that people do. And it's just, we have like lighting mock-ups, and then we have 3D visualizations, and they almost match identically.
Wow.
Or installation shots and our 3D visualization tools, and they almost match exactly. And when we're shocked how close some of these things can become. And so they're useful tools.
Yeah. One thing that I found fascinating, having either seen videos of you or the way how you describe in writing different concepts of light, how to express the complexities that you already mentioned of lighting control systems, I found it really interesting that your technical knowledge is obviously extremely profound, but then at the same time you are able to break down and explain something on a napkin sketch or just very, very easily.
So if you think about my history that I just explained to you and my background, working for Marvin Gellman at LSI, stage and studio is about the light and the control of light and what impact the control of light has. So I learned that was really, really important when I was interning at LSI. And when I got out of school, I didn't know anything about how to turn a light on and off, other than that there was a switch on the wall.
Yeah.
And that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to go work in an electrical engineering firm, as opposed to going right to a lighting design firm. I said, I need to learn more about that. And so while I was at this engineering firm, it was Hartman and Kinchesi, and I was only there for a year. I focused on a few projects that were like boardrooms and sophisticated conference rooms, and somehow I got thrown into this lighting control thing, and I kind of focused on that, and I learned a lot about it. And I always thought it was really, really important for us to have that technical understanding.
Yeah.
So it's always been a part of our DNA, and everybody here has a really good understanding of what turns lights on and off, or does other things to lights. But everybody here has a really, really good understanding of how that works. I don't know how much other firms focus on that. I've heard mixed stories about that. Some people really pay attention to it. Some people say, oh, it's somebody else's responsibility. I think they're directly connected to the success of a project. We always spend a lot of time commissioning our jobs to make sure we believe lighting is dynamic. It's going to change throughout a day. It's going to change for different room use. And we spend a lot of time making sure that these things are commissioned right. And because you can design all you want, if it's not set up right, which we find often that happens on projects, they just haven't been set up right.
Yeah.
I won't say what job it was, but we were on a roof deck last year. I won't tell you what building it is. We had designed the lighting for this roof deck, and we happened to walk through one of the amenity floors for this major corporation in the evening, and they had an event there. And it was terrible. The lighting was fine during the day, but as soon as they went to an evening event, it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. And it's not like they didn't have all the tools to make it right. Just nobody paid attention that they have evening events in this space, and they need to set up the lighting for that time of day.
Yeah.
So we spend a lot of time thinking about that. If I showed you one of our presentations now that we're doing for a company, which I also can't tell you who it's for, we're showing them daytime and nighttime stories.
Yeah.
Or evening stories. And they like the story. So anybody else who's listening who does this, think about that.
Yeah.
I think it has a lot of mileage to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I completely agree that sometimes it's maybe hard to tell on a project walking through the city and just looking at things and like, this doesn't look, this could have been better. But then sometimes you don't know if you potentially have a client who's saying, well, thank you for the SD phase and the idea. But I think the quality of a project really shows only when you have been there from beginning to end and carrying through all of these complexities.
I have one of our people today who's in Denver, who's starting up a new office tower, another Jim Getch building, and it's beautiful because all of his buildings are beautiful. And this is Yasmin, and she's been working with me since day one, before we started One-Lux Studio. And she started up so many projects with me. She knows exactly what to do. So it's not like, so we spoke yesterday. She was on a plane this morning. I said, look, if you have any issues, call me. I said, but you've done this, 20 times, you know how to do it.
Yeah.
Make it beautiful during the day and make it beautiful in the evening and make it look beautiful even when the building's closed. We spend a lot of time actually thinking about that.
Yeah.
What does it look like when the building's shut down? We call it shutdown, actually.
Is this something that you obviously you don't have to give numbers, but just an idea that in the phases of SD, DD, CD, and then CA, where kind of the magic of a building comes really to life in CA, sometimes the fees either have run out or there's very, very little time. Is this something that you focus on, or how do you factor
We
this
should
in?
focus on it, but we don't, because we're purists and we don't want to see our work at the end of the job not achieve its goals because we're out of fee. So we try to protect ourselves, but typically the way billings are set up just in the industry, there's just not enough dollars left in CA. It just happens often.
Yeah.
So hopefully we make our money at the earlier part of the project and we pay for it at the end of the job.
Yeah.
We went to a job, we did the renovation of Time Warner, which is now Deutsche Bank. We redid the lobby. And actually we got a Lumen Award for it, I think 2 years ago. When we turned on the lights, so I don't know if you're familiar with the project, but it's 2 towers. There's a lobby on 58th Street. When it was originally designed, it was dark. The walls were black, no daylight. It was just really a tough place to be. And we actually did Time Warner's office space in the building. We didn't do the building. And Time Warner was always complaining about how dark the lobby was. So a couple of times over the decades, people tried to fix it. Time Warner moved out, Deutsche Bank moved in, and they related who owns the building, redid the lobby. When we turned on the lights, our eyes just popped out of our head, and we just said, wow, this is amazing. And because the space was really a tough space to light, because all the finishes were dark, there was no daylight, and the whole thing was transformed. And every once in a while, we walk into one of our jobs and they hit the light switch, and like, we usually are pretty good at knowing what's going to happen, but once in a while you get these pleasant surprises. How did we do this? You're like, how did this happen?
Yeah.
And if you haven't been in it, you should go in it. It's just magic. When you walk in there, you go, wow, this is just... By the way, SOM, who did the original project, also did the renovation for the lobby, and Chris Cooper came up with this idea for this lobby that was just fantastic, and we helped him do it. And when we were all in there, we were just sitting there going like, how did this happen? Like, this was such a dead space, and now it's so active and alive and just fantastic. So we're happy when that happens, when we get those surprises. They don't happen all that often, but once in a while we get something like that to happen.
Wonderful. In 2006 and 2007, it sounds like that, having worked with Fernando and with Jack so before, and you already talked about transitioning the clients, that this was just like the band was already established, and you just like continued to do the work that you've ever done. What was the urge or the reason where you thought, okay, we have to do our own business?
So I was involved in Cosentini Associates, not only in the lighting design, but helping them manage the engineering aspects of the firm, because I don't know, I showed some skills at business, and I learned a lot helping them manage some of that. And they were acquired, and so that actually forced better business acumen than a private partnership, and that was actually good, I think, for their business. And I helped them for the first couple of years of that transition, and then I realized that what I really like doing is lighting design. And I thought that it was time that we could do it better on our own. I didn't really need them anymore for relationships. Although I thought I was at the top of my game, nothing can get better than this. I loved everything that I did. I loved all the projects. I loved all the clients. But at some point, I was still an employee. I wasn't a business owner. And I thought it was time to grow up and be a business owner. And so I took the plunge, and Jack and Fernando were an integral part of us building the business. And I asked them to be partners. And the three of us picked up and we left. And Cosentini was nice enough to give us all of the work. They said, take everybody, leave us one person, take all of the work. We'll be your first and best client. So on Friday, we left Cosentini Lighting Design, and on Monday we rented some desks in some architect's office around the corner, and we were open and we had billing, and 30 days later we got a payment and we were in business. So we were very lucky. It didn't have to go that way. They didn't have to be so supportive of us, but they were good friends. We've been good to them for all these years. And actually, Doug Mass, who was running the company at the time, still is, said, "How come you didn't do this 10 years ago?" Right. So, and maybe I should have, but maybe the time wasn't right. So we were very lucky for that to have all happened.
Yeah. There are a couple of people in the industry that you have obviously touched over your years, so many different people and so many different lives. And whenever I hear people talk about their time at One-Lux, they also felt that they were tremendously supported and obviously mentored and educated, but also supported in the way. Do you feel that this is maybe something that you carry on from Cosentini, that this was a a generous gift. I mean, they didn't had to do it, but obviously now us talking about it, it's something very, very positive that reflects on Cosentini. Is this something that you believe in, just doing something that might not look right on paper and doesn't make sense financially right now, but it will play out in the long run and maybe be even more rewarding in a way?
So I think we've been in business 18 years, I think. We've lost very few people other than for them wanting to relocate, change industries. It's very rare through all this time that we've lost people. I'm not saying completely, but it's very rare that we haven't supported somebody who is here. There have been a few people who didn't just work out, they weren't for us, but for the most part, we are very careful about who we hire. Mm-hmm. And we invest in them, we teach them, we train them. And that's why if you go out here after our interview, you'll go see some unbelievable people who are doing unbelievable things. Mm-hmm. And so for us, we grow our people. Very rarely have we ever succeeded hiring somebody who we haven't grown. We have a few exceptions, some people who are exceptional, but the majority of the staff out there, we got them right out of school. Most of them, I think 3/4 of our staff are from Parsons, which is your background.
Yeah.
And they have incredibly creative skill sets. And they make up for the lack of creativity that we may have. Mm-hmm. And so we challenge them. We want their input. We want them to grow so that they can go out in a couple of years and go meet with some of the best people in the world and satisfy them to go start up a job by themselves without us there.
Yeah.
And so we believe in that a lot. I'm happy hearing what you said. I didn't know people feel that way about us.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that we do that. And I'm happy some people feel that way, that we're very supportive of them because we try. We do it intentionally. Whether that goes back to roots from Cosentini, I can't really tell you for sure. But I've always felt that way. That's why we have these great talented people who work here.
Yeah. What are the different skill sets of your partners? Do you complement each other, or are you all very strong creatively, very strong technically, all across the board, and you just share? Or do you have moments where you're like, oh yeah, let Steven do this, or let's Fernando do this?
So in fact, we had an interesting conversation about that this past Monday about the diversification of business. One of the things that I learned at Cosentini is that you want to do many different project types because economic climates change. No one's building new office buildings. Jack and I specialize in new office buildings. I have 4 major office buildings that are on hold right now because of interest rates and the economy. And if I didn't have any office interiors, if I didn't have any residential work, if I didn't have any other higher end educational work, if I didn't have all of those projects, we'd be out of business. Mm-hmm. Fernando really manages our very high-end hospitality and high-end residential work. He's very good at it. Mm-hmm. Jack and I both have those projects as well, but we really specialize a lot in commercial. We're known for it. I don't know if we want to be known for it. We'd like to be involved in some of the more creative or unique environments, but we enjoy doing it. We enjoy doing things sometimes on the edge. It's hard to push corporate clients to the edge to do things that are different, unless you have a client who wants to. So we finished BlackRock a year or so ago, and they came to us with these very interesting requirements, and it just kind of fit into my wheelhouse. Like, mm-hmm. They wanted to do a control thing that never anybody did. They wanted to do a wiring thing that nobody ever did. They wanted a performance thing that nobody ever did before. And there were a lot of technical things about making that all happen. Mm-hmm. And somehow, 4 years later, they did it. And Lutron came up with a video to tell the whole story about it, So those are kind of fun moments of things that happen. But at the same time, like I told the story about the lobby at Columbus Circle, if you walk in there, you understand everything what lighting does for a project. Mm-hmm. And you recognize it instantly of how important it is. if you walk into the General Motors building that we renovated, I think during COVID, and if you looked at what it was like and you look at what it looks like now, and that's a classic building, which we did with Fogarty Finger, it's just amazing how we transformed. The architecture didn't change, the lighting changed.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how the space just got transformed in a very, very smart way. So you asked, do my partners have specific attributes, or do I? It's funny, I don't think of myself as a very creative person. I think of myself as a very good problem solver. And maybe design is part of the problem, but I'm very good at looking at a design challenge and figuring out how to solve the problem. My partners are very good designers, and they're also very good technically as well. So there's a balance. I can't really tell you like who's creative and who's not, because I'm really not even sure what that means. Like, people have said to me, they've looked at our work and they say, oh, that's a really creative solution. And I look at it and I said, that was a problem to solve. Mm-hmm. It wasn't necessarily a design problem. So it's a mix of both.
Bring this somewhat to a close here, being mindful of your time. What is something where you would like to see One-Lux to develop? Is there like a future direction or a goal that you have for One-Lux, and maybe something that you would like to put out or share with the world, what you are maybe looking for right now, and where you would like to see One-Lux to develop potentially in the future?
It's interesting. The more we've developed this firm, the more significant jobs we're being invited to. So the level of the types of projects that we're being considered for our bar has gone up. Because we've done some big, significant projects. And once you've done one, you're considered for another one, and you're considered for another one. So we like the fact that we're being considered what we think are some of the highest end projects being built in the world. But there's another level, one step higher. And there's a few firms that we have targeted who do these projects, and we want them to want to work with us more. We work with them, but not as much as we'd like. We want them to have to work with us. They love us. They want us to be in the room with them. And so there's a few firms, I don't even want to say who they are, but there are a few firms that we look and said, boy, would it be great if we were doing their work? Look at what they're doing worldwide. Yeah. And so I think that's really important. And I think the other important part is just continuing this development of our staff. Jack, Fernando, and I could not do what we do without our staff that we have. It's amazing what their capabilities are, both from a creative standpoint, a design standpoint, a presentation standpoint, a technical standpoint. And if we didn't teach them and train them to be that way, we wouldn't be doing the kinds of projects that we're doing. So for us, I want to make sure that we continue to do that and give people the opportunity to show their skill sets and their creativity. And we have to stay in business. 6 months from now, hopefully my woes about my 4 office buildings being on hold go away. If those 4 office buildings start, all my woes disappear.
Yeah.
So hopefully we've hit the bottom of this cycle, and we'll start to see things change again. And I just want to have a successful business where people want to come to work. The first thing I said to you when we got on this interview was, I love what I do. I love coming to work. I want everybody who's out there who works with us to feel the same way. And for me, that makes me happy. Ask me what makes me happy. That's what makes me happy. When someone's sitting there saying, oh, I have this unreasonable deadline and I got to come in this weekend, or I got to work tonight till 10 o'clock, I'm not happy when that happens. It happens from time to time. But we want people to be happy about what they're doing and working here.
Stephen, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I'm certainly a big fan of the work you do, and admire it from afar and close now. And again, it seems like that the people and the time and energy you put into developing and helping your staff develop and do what they like to do, love to do, and create an environment that's fostering this is certainly radiating far beyond your office. So I appreciate your time, and thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dear listeners, thank you for listening in and get inspired by Stephen Margulies from One-Lux Studio. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend or colleague who you think might benefit from Stephen's wisdom. For more about Stephen's work and his office, check out their website, oneluxstudio.com. Everything in one word. Again, oneluxstudio.com. Personally, I loved his energy, passion, and clear guidance being a master at his craft. What resonated most with me, aside from his amazing storytelling, is the value of managing challenging situations well and turning it into assets, building lasting relationships for immediate and future success. What resonated with you? What did you like? Do it like Yvan Cascon, listening in from Brussels. Hey there to Brussels. He said hi on LinkedIn. Special shout out, his work in light dance installation looks amazing. So say hi, like and subscribe. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and get illuminated. Keep illuminating the world with your light. On this light note, enjoy, and I hear you on the next one. Bye.